In 1927, in September, Little Rock Senior opened for the first time. Little Rock Senior would later on be renamed Central in 1953. A year after being renamed, the NAACP had petitioned for the school to undergo a gradual integration of the students starting at high school level. The students' names were Minigan Brown, Elizabeth Eckford, Ernest Green, Thelma Mothershed, Melba Patillo, Gloria Ray, Terrence Roberts, Jefferson Thomas, and Carlota Walls. These 9 students were recruited by Daisy Bates, the president of the NAACP. Society knew that this was coming, which led up to the court cases. Cooper versus Aaron, the Supreme Court had ruled that they couldn't pass a legislation undermining the court's ruling of Brown versus Board of Education. The case of Brown versus Board of Education was where Oliver Brown had taken Topeka, Kansas school to Supreme Court for denying Brown's son to access the school. Decision held was that racial segregation of children in public schools violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which states that no state shall make or enforce any law which shall deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. With some going against the idea of integration, fearing the spark of violence to come along, the Segregationist Mothers League of Central High School warned about the possible danger that can come with the idea of desegregation. But federal judge Ronald Davies ordered the school board to go ahead with the original plan, giving permission. Even with the go-ahead from the federal judge, Governor Orval Faubus ordered the National Guard of Arkansas to not let Little Rock 9 enter Central High School, then announces it on television in a speech on September 2nd. September 4th was the 9 students' first day of school. The 8 students arrived being driven by Bates. Eckford didn't arrive with the 8 because her family did not have a telephone, making it so that she wasn't aware of carpool plans. Being that she didn't know of carpool plans, she went to school alone. The Arkansas Guard ultimately did not let in any of Little Rock 9. On this day was the day that a famous picture of Eckford with her notebook in hand and a screaming mob behind her was created. This photo soon was spread, giving national and international attention. On September 20th, Federal Judge Ronald Davies rules that Faubus is not using the troops to preserve law and order and removes the guards, then have Little Rock Police Department take over. While the 9 African American students are escorted inside on September 23rd, an angry mob of somewhat over 1,000 white students form a crowd in front of Central High School. The 9 students are then escorted out by police to safety. 2 days later, Little Rock 9 is escorted into Central High to have their first full day of school. Faubus over the year publicly expressed his want of the 9 students to be removed from Central High. Even though the first day of school for some of the 9 were good, later in the year was where incidents of violence happened, with acts of violence being beaten, kicked, having acid thrown on one, pushed down a flight of stairs another. Little Rock 9 was not allowed to join extracurricular activities. Brown was then later expelled for fighting back after one of the attacks.
First, I was involved in a chili incident, in which it's been said that I dumped chili on somebody's head, but in fact, I dropped the tray because they were slamming into me. The chili incident meant that they were going to really get me back for that. And so, I got 2 soups thrown on me. And the girls' vice principal had clothes for me because things kept happening to me that would ruin my clothes. And we have no public information about any of those things. They have not been spoken of. They haven't been told in so many ways. My expulsion came as a result of about 5 girls who would just follow me and take turns walking on my heels. And my heels were raw I mean, in addition to the other people spitting and throwing, just hear names and giggling about my clothes and she looks like a monkey and just go on and on and on. I'd walk in the door of school and they'd fall in behind me. And my homeroom was up on the 3rd floor. And as I was turning to go in my homeroom, they'd thrown a purse and hit me in the back of the head. And I turned and picked up the purse, opened it, and it was full of combination locks. And I guess, what do you do with that? Feeling the sheer anger, I think probably in my mind I thought, throw it back, but which one of the 5 am I going to hit? So I just, of course, no one saw this, and I wasn't smart enough to keep it for evidence. I just dropped it back on the floor and said, leave me alone, white trash. And for that reason, they decided that I should be expelled. We appealed it, my parents appealed it, but between the time I got expelled, I was kicked down the steps in a cartoon kick, the kind where you kick somebody and they splay out on their whole body. And so by the time the expulsion seemed to me to be, I was being expelled because people were doing things to me.
On May 25th, Ernest Green, the only senior out of the 9, was the first African-American student to graduate from Central High School. A year after Central High had been integrated, Governor Fabbis closed down Little Rock high schools for an entire year. This made students that were going to the closed schools have to do homeschooling or go to the other schools for a little bit. Having the public vote for or against integration, citizens had voted 19,470 to 7,561 against integration, keeping the schools closed. The rest of Little Rock 9 went to schools across the country to finish high school. On August 12, 1959, the Little Rock high schools reopened. After graduating, several went on to college and got quality careers. Green went on to serve as an assistant secretary of the Federal Department of Labor. Brown became deputy assistant secretary for the workforce diversity in the Department of the Interior. And Patillo worked as a reporter for NBC. President Bill Clinton also had given each of the 9 members of Little Rock 9 a Congressional Gold Medal. All members were also invited to President Obama's inauguration.